Well, hello, everyone, and welcome to our April public meeting of Wild Ones. Our public meetings are free to the public and held on the second Monday of each month at 6 o'clock. Our next meeting will be on May the 9th, and fingers crossed it will be in person at Green Spaces. Bill Haley, who you may have known when he worked at the aquarium, we'll talk about finding biodiversity in our yards at night. So moths and things like that. You can find more information on our website. Also on May 16th, Wild Ones is starting a new series of 7 free introductory classes for those interested in getting started gardening with native plants. They will be held monthly, in 6 of them in the evening, 1 of them on a Saturday morning. The classes will conclude in November, and also you can more information on the website. Tonight, we're excited to have Shawn Bible from the Tennessee Department of Transportation Environmental Division speaking to us. She is the manager of the beautification office, and she's going to talk to us about her efforts to help our pollinators by not mowing and things like that along the state roads in the state of Tennessee. I first, I learned about Shawn from Margaret Wrinkle. Some of you may be familiar with her writings. She noticed a beautiful meadow at one of our rest stops and decided to find out who was responsible for this gorgeous site, and she wrote an article about it in the New York Times, also made it into her latest book, Graceland at Last. So I'll let Shawn tell you about her efforts. Thank you so much, Shawn.
Thank you. We were surprised Margaret wrote that. As I was telling Allison, she's a friend of a friend. So when she started writing that and started reaching out, she thought, oh, I've heard of her. I've met her. And so I was able to contribute some info for her, and we were super excited. And I have a little bit of a funny, because it turned out okay, story about that. In state government, it's sometimes 2 steps forward and 1 step back. I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself. I have a degree in forestry from the University of South Sewanee, and trees are my first love, but I'm a lifelong gardener, and I worked for 14 years for Metro Nashville Beautification, and then I've been at TDOT 18 years, and I've done all kinds of public space planting or urban forestry, lots of tree planting. And that's a hard thing, urban street tree planting, but it's worth doing. And my well, I have 2 other things. My other big claim to fame is litter prevention, and I'll put a little plug in for our litter prevention programs. We are trying to start an anti-litter movement in Tennessee, and our slogan is Nobody Trashes Tennessee. If you go to nobodytrashestennessee.com, we are trying to reach those litter bugs 18 to 34, because that's our big litter bug group. And so we are doing it with humor and not heavy-handed, and it's pretty fun. And I hope you'll check it out. I hope you'll join the movement, join a cleanup, pick up in your neighborhood. We've got to do something and change this littering behavior. My other crazy part of my job is I'm the lucky gal that regulates billboards statewide, and it's a very wretched, difficult job. But that is actually where the beautification office name came from. It's from the Highway Beautification Act that Lady Bird Johnson got passed in 1965. So many people associate that with her wildflower planting and roadside flowers, but the biggest part of that law was about billboard control. And so the offices in state Department of Transportations that regulate billboards have tended to be called the beautification office. Luckily, I get to do the fun half, which is the planting and the litter prevention and those sorts of things. Several years ago at TDOT, really the federal government started talking more about protecting pollinators. And we talked about it internally at TDOT and realized that we were already doing a good many things. We had a really great guy over our operations division, and he had already moved to integrated pest management and integrated weed control and had greatly reduced our spraying, our herbicide spraying. Some of that we have to do for safety, and he had greatly reduced our mowing. So we are, most of our interstate, we are now mowing a 16-foot swath. And then outside that swath from there to the fence, we are not mowing, and we're getting a lot of really great growth. And we mow those areas once a year. We do have some areas between Chattanooga and Knoxville on 75 that they are mowing more often. And it's been a disappointment to me, but when I argue with the engineers, I usually do not win. And they have had some mowing issues with sumac and some other things they haven't felt like they could control with one mow a year. And so they are mowing more often. But in general, we've reduced mowing and we've reduced herbicide spraying. So we talked about what, I hate this expression, low hanging fruit, but we talked about what could we do that, I won't say it was easy, but something where we wouldn't have to fight internally at TDOT to make it happen. So we decided to try planting at welcome centers. And the very first welcome center we planted at was the Ardmore Welcome Center on I-65, going into Alabama, well, coming from Alabama into Tennessee. And that's the one that Margaret Rankle saw. We planted an acre. I'd say one of the biggest reasons for our success was the fact that we hired a professional. Andy Sudbrook from Nashville Natives has been working with us just to have somebody that goes a couple times a year. I mean, once we got it established, goes a couple times a year, checks it, spot sprays for weeds, and it makes all the difference. We don't have the time to do that, and we're not quite as deep in knowing exactly what we need to do. My funny, not so funny story is we just after Margaret's article, this is so typical of what happens in government, and this guy that messed me up has messed me up multiple times before, but he's retired now. He just after Margaret's article came out, we had I can't remember if it was a plumbing problem or a septic tank problem there at that welcome center, but they let us know that they were going to have to dig up a little bit of the garden. They were going to mow a little bit to find the pipes and dig up this little bit at the end. And they showed me maps, and they said, well, all of a sudden, 3 days later, I woke up and somebody called, the head of the welcome center called. They were so proud of the planting and so happy to show it off. They said, Shawn, they've mowed the whole thing. They just mowed the entire acre. They just mowed it down. So we were, I was like, could it be any more embarrassing? We just had this fabulous article and you've mowed the whole thing down. So, but we sent Andy Sudbrook out there to look at it, and he said if we would just rake out all that extra plant material that had been cut and left on site, he thought we would be okay. And in fact, usually it doesn't work like this. I always like to say I much prefer the doing rather than the planning. So, but actually a fellow that works for me said, I'll take my rake, I'll go. And he hand raked the whole acre of all that extra material, and it's done great. This is our third year. I'm one of those people that really believes in that first year it sleeps, second year it creeps, and third year it leaps. So this is our leaping year, and I suspect it's going to be beautiful and fabulous this year. And if you go to look at it, notice that there's, well, there's a row of cypress trees at the back of the planting. They were there. And then we planted some native shrubs, a few, in front of those trees. And then it transitions into the wildflowers. But back behind those ball cypress is a fence and a field that it happens that TDOT owns. And it's just full of great native pollinator plants. It's not as showy as ours. It doesn't have as many flowers, but we just to multiply our efforts, we tried to take the opportunity to work with the TDOT guys that do the mowing and ask them just to mow that once a year in the late fall, so that we could promote, and that's much bigger than an acre. So that's some of the kinds of things we're trying to do. We're trying to get benefits out of little things like, oh, if you just didn't mow here, oh, if we could just plant this little bit of plants here. We would very much like, and have tried 2 years, but it hasn't happened. We would very much like to burn. Being from a forestry background, and my husband's at the Division of Forestry at Agriculture, so I know the burn people, and they would come burn for us. And we feel like the best spring thing to do would be to burn, but you know, I don't want to be the gal that puts the smoke on the interstate and causes a wreck. So we haven't had, we'll have to have the perfect day and the perfect conditions for me to be comfortable doing it, but we'll probably keep trying. So once we did that planning and had some success, and I guess the other thing is things like this always seem to be more expensive than you think they're going to be. I often talk to citizens, folks that just say, if you'll just give me a little bag of seeds, I'll make it all happen. And I'm not, now I can do that in my backyard, but I'm just not sure they realize the expense and the work, especially when you're planting on something that was grass before, which this was. But so after we had that success, we were fired up to do more. We have planted at the Tennessee Solar Farm. If you've driven from Chattanooga through Nashville into Memphis, you can't miss the solar farm in Haywood County. If you're headed west, it's on the right. And we've planted 2 acres there. This will be the second year of that planting. It didn't look like much of anything last year. And we had, there's always an issue. It was, what was it? Something like gas storage underneath or something. But I think that just affected some shrubs, and we got that settled. And I'm going to be excited to go there in May and see what that planting looks like. Then we were not sure we wanted that much anymore. So that was a partnership with tourism. Tourism and TDOT manage the welcome centers together. So it's not that we won't do more welcome centers, but we wanted to branch out a little bit. And so we talked to a Department of Environment and Conservation, state parks. And I don't know if you know, but they have a serious honey project, and they are keeping honeybees at many of their parks and selling the honey. And Department of Agriculture has an official apiist. And so we partnered with Agriculture and TDEC to plant pollinator meadows at 8 of the state parks. I made a list, but I couldn't think of number 8, but Seven Islands, Sycamore Shoals, Big Pond, Henry Horton, Paris Landing, Pickwick, Montgomery Bell, and one other. And some of those are quite large, several acres. Some are small. And all of those parks are selling their honey. We help produce a display for them. Parks is always never has any money. They're always so poor. So we help provide the display for the honey and hopefully the food for the bees. And we're having pretty good success with those plantings too. We've had ups and downs. Once again, that's when it's nice to have someone like Andy who can go and troubleshoot. We had, I can't remember what kind of invasive we had at Pickwick that we had to deal with before we could really get the pollinator species going. But we have TDOT, sadly, does not have a landscape architect now or any degreed horticulturists. And so we hire consultant help. We have great people, but I wish we had some in-house people at TDOT, and we may eventually again, but we don't now. And so Andy and our consultants have just been super to I can't stand when I got to TDOT, I had some big failures. I did some interstate plantings and had some pretty darn big failures. They put the big gator bags on the trees and no one ever put any water in them, or crazy stuff. So I kind of got over the failures. If I was going to plant anything, I wanted to have it be successful. And so we've gone slow and steady on these. So it has been a pretty big investment. We have applied for federal research funds and partnered with Austin P. And I don't know if you've heard of their native prairie group at Austin P, but they're some of the biggest native prairie researchers in the country. And I was very lucky early in this work on pollinators. I got to go to the White House during the Obama administration and go to a big pollinator summit at the White House. And I was so excited. My commissioner was invited, and he said, "Shawn, you can do whatever you want on pollinators. Just do big things." He said, "But I don't want to do it." I said, "Yay, I'll do that." So I got to go to the White House instead of the commissioner. And at that conference, I asked, "Okay, so what is the Venn diagram of native prairie plants and native and pollinator species?" And they said they made the two circles exactly overlap. They said it's exactly the same thing. And I was like, okay, we can work with the prairie people and it'll be a win-win. They are not concentrating on the idea of pollinators, and we are not concentrating on the idea of native prairie, but it had the same results. So they worked to identify a lot of areas along TDOT right-of-way on our state routes that have endangered species. And I had not been as tuned into endangered species, but we were able to go on Sherwood Road out to the southwest of Sewanee, and there was just a little bit of the road, less than a mile, of a rocky shoulder. It's not a big shoulder, and there's 3 or 4 extremely endangered, extremely rare plants there. And because there's no grass, it's rocky. If you've ever been to Sewanee, you know how those roads look. And so there's no mowing. TDOT was periodically going along there and spraying to keep the weeds down. And TDOT was happy. We got the TDOT guys from down in the valley to come up there and meet us, and we got the Parks native plant people, and we got the Austin P native plant people, and we met and we designed a sign, and we got the TDOT people to agree to, and it's just a little bitty section. We put a sign at the beginning and a sign at the end, and TDOT agreed not to spray anymore. And we were able to protect those plants. It was pretty easy peasy, and the TDOT guys were thrilled to do it and be a part of it. And the TDOT endangered and native plant guy, he was thrilled, and so it was pretty exciting. It was I have to get excited over the little things and the little gains, because then we have a step back every once in a while. We as a part of that, we also planted exit 1. The last interstate exit as you're going up 24 by Clarksville into Kentucky. They planted flowers, native flowers there. It was an effort. The weedy grass in an interstate interchange don't want to die. And so it was fabulous last summer. So we're hoping for for that to look great again this summer. So those are sort of, oh, so then we applied again for this research money. And this is federal research money, so TDOT doesn't have to pay for it. And this year, our grant was awarded to University of Memphis, and they're going to research the thing that TDOT seems open to. We have what we've been pressed to do by the federal government is use all these acres and acres and acres of right-of-way we have to plant for pollinators. Some of that's just hard for the engineers to accept. So we've tried to find a win-win place, and it seems the win-win place is going to be planting on slopes. We have some slopes we're mowing, but they're very difficult to mow. It's dangerous. It causes erosion. It's not a very good thing. And so the University of Memphis is going to research planting on these right-of-way slopes. And we've identified, actually, I think, don't take this to the bank, but I think the trial place we're going to plant is there at the big new TDOT office is there in Chattanooga. They have those slopes back behind the building, and I think we're going to do some of the experiment planting there to see how it goes. So we're super excited to work with the University of Memphis and super excited to do that. And that gives us a little breathing room before we jump off into planning at TDOT, because that will be harder. In the meantime, we're working internally on, and I don't want to go out too far on a limb, and I don't want you, the next TDOT person you meet, don't fuss at them. But we're trying to work on having a more native seed spec in our construction specifications. We have to get the engineers past the idea that they have to use them if they're in the spec book. I think if there's not a spec for them, how am I ever going to ask somebody to use the native seed spec that doesn't have crown vetch in it? So what I found out with 18 years at TDOT is that if I do a lot of little projects, I have landscape architects on call. TDOT removed way too much shrubbery and trees on the interstate in front of a subdivision in Williamson County that had their swimming pool right next to interstate. And all of a sudden, everybody swimming could see the truckers going by, and they didn't like it. So we put in a berm and planted it. Now that would have been the perfect place to put native grass. And then what works with engineers is to say, oh, we did that. It worked perfectly. Because what they say to me is, we tried that in the 70s and that didn't work, Shawn. Well, holy moly, the 70s? We've learned something since then. So I need some places where we've planted native seed mixes and they've worked. And I'm sure I'm singing to the choir and you already know this, but the biggest problem, and I'm not enough of a plantsman to even know, but the biggest problem is we are required by TDEC because of water quality to hold our slopes very quickly. And the natives have better, deeper roots, but they don't have them fast. And that awful crown vetch just grows very fast and holds the slope. So we've got to find that balance. And we had a clever idea we were going to do on a long time ago at TDOT, but we planted sod zoysia on the project, and then we were going to kill these zoysia, but the roots, it was established and the roots would have continued to help the slope, hold the slope, and we were going to slip seed all the native grasses into that dead zoysia mat. But the TDOT water quality people who had sweated blood over the zoysia and holding that slope shot us down, and we didn't get to do it. So it was entertaining in kind of a sad way that two sides of environmental didn't agree. And so the project didn't get to happen because the water quality environmental people didn't want us to mess with their sod to be able to plant native. So it's always one thing and another thing. I'm seeing some of these questions as they pop up. We may have to review them. I hate smarty pants, and yet I do it sometimes. I don't think I have any control over TVA. Oh my goodness. Um, my good story about TVA is they have been funding our Keep the Tennessee River Beautiful affiliate, and they were wonderful to get that affiliate off the ground. So we're doing all kinds of wonderful litter prevention and cleanup with TVA's help. But on the other hand, I don't think they answered anybody but the president. I'm looking to see what else I want to tell you. The other thing we've done is we've worked with consultants to produce educational series of videos, little short videos, 5 to 15 minutes. They feature Polly the bee. We were incredibly lucky to hook up with the state and Nashville STEM curriculum people, the people that say what the curriculum is, and they have reviewed our whole thing. So we really feel like teachers will really use it. Our first videos will be out this fall, and then over this year and next year, we'll have 6 videos all about pollinators and the importance of pollinators. You'll be able to access them on our TDOT website. But this summer, you probably know, the week of June 19th is Pollinator Week, and we'll be at least at the Ardmore and the Solar Farm welcome centers, and we're going to be giving away, did you play with these when you were a child? It's a car bingo card. It has the little slidey doors. When you spot the item, when you're traveling in the car, you slide the little door over, and then eventually you get a bingo. We have bukus of them. There's 3 different sets, and they're all Tennessee roadside and pollen. Here's a spotting clover, a monarch butterfly, hummingbird, beard tongue. It's all native things. A carpenter bee, I have those in my house. A wasp, an oxeye daisy, corn, common milkweed, and you can play car bingo in the back seat. And there's one company in America that makes these. We wanted the real deal that didn't have just little cardboard flappy things that would break. So these have these heavy plastic little slidey doors. I'm so excited about them, and we'll be distributing them at welcome centers during Pollinator Week. It took us a year to get them because of shipping. They came on a slow boat from China. It was an American company, but there's only the only company that produces them then is in China. And they came through the port of Los Angeles, so they're a year behind. So I'm very, very excited about them. Allison, do you want to maybe feed me a few of those other questions that people were asking?
Can you talk to us a little bit about the Nomo program?
It was pretty much 100% on interstates. So it was a 16-foot mow, and then everything past 16 feet to the fence was not being mowed. They've gradually ooched back into mowing more often on some of those miles. I think 40 across the state is still all no mow, but that 75, they were getting some pushback, and they were mowing more often. Road to fence. I've had some really wonderful calls from people saying, what did you plant? What did you plant? And we hadn't planted anything. It was just, all we had to do is quit mowing. I sort of thought we'd get more noxious stuff coming up, but I may be thinking about more like invasive trees. I think that's the next frontier, by the way. I'd really like TDOT to take on Paulownia and mimosa. I'm just so sick about mimosa. And if we just had a protocol, to me, I mean, maybe I'm being naive. If we just had a protocol where when we cleared right of way, whether it was for a project or something else, if we just painted stumps, if we just painted tree poison, on all those stumps. And I mean, mimosa's gonna take the Smokies. It's sickening. You know, Polonia, Alanthus, you know, oh, Bradford pear. My husband, he's very aware of tree wise, but he was not aware of how invasive Bradford pear is. And if you go to the right parts of Tennessee, it's just horrific. I mean, this time of year, you think, oh, how pretty, but it's not really. So I think TDOT, you know, I mean, I have to say in our defense, we have some of the very best roads in America, and we are consistently rated by the truckers and the RVers. It's up in the top 5 states for roads in the country. And we do it all without borrowing money. So, you know, we do our number one job first. And so, you know, it's just like litter. Sometimes we have a hard time getting the sheriffs to write tickets for litter because they're really trying to catch the bad guys instead of writing litter tickets. But we think litter is important too.
I had a question that was sort of like one of these that someone, let's see, what role does the state legislature play in reinforcing / requiring native plantings on public lands beyond roadways and state parks?
I'm not sure I know that answer. That they could. I think there's some things on the books about planting certain amount of natives, and I don't know why. It was before my time, and I don't know why we've gotten away from it as a state government. You know, politics this isn't a super environmental bunch. I don't know. Politics sometimes gets into it. I don't want to go there, but they could. I'm very lucky that I get to do what I do at TDOT, and we just kind of do it quietly and just try to keep pushing the envelope.
So that would lead me to a question that I have. What can we as citizens of this state, is there something that we personally can do to help this effort along?
Now see, that was a really good segue, because I think you can make that clear to your elected officials. And in fact, we are really, really, really trying to do a major planting in Chattanooga at 4th Street and at MLK. And because of the economy and the little spot we're in, we've had a terrible time trying to find someone to do it for a reasonable amount of money. And TDOT's not particularly penny pinchy. I mean, we would have paid to get it done, but the amounts that were bid to do it were just so crazy money. As a citizen, you wouldn't want us to spend that. So that is going to be put out there for bids again here at the 1st of May, I think. And everybody keep your fingers crossed, pray that project lets for a reasonable amount of money, and we're able to do that planting. We worked with Judge Thomas there in Chattanooga, and but when I heard I had to meet with him, I was very negative, and he completely won me over. He has been so fabulous to work with, and he's an incredible asset for Chattanooga. And he's trying to take this program statewide, and I hope we can do it because he's fabulous. And that planting will be full of natives, and it will have flowers, and it will have modern cutting edge runoff control, and I'm super excited about it. We had to take the lighting out. We took the lighting out because we couldn't afford it. But we kept the irrigation in, I'm happy to say. And you know, this is interesting. This is the first TDOT project of that kind at an interstate interchange that we've ever irrigated. It'll be the very first time. So,
well, I was going to ask you about that, because when we originally talked, you thought you might be able to come down and to Chattanooga and meet about this interchange. I mean, this was on the front page of our paper. Does anyone remember how many years ago it was on? I mean, real detailed information. you know, how many, you know, trees and, you know, the acreage. How many acres is it, Shawn? It's a lot.
You know, I do not know, and I ought to. I tend to say and I really mean my office. We paid for the design. We paid for all the work on those public meetings. We have paid for all this rework on the plans every time it hasn't gone to a letting and gotten bid on. And so we have, and then of course TDOT is going to pay for the plants and the install and the safety and all of that. But of course, it's great and wonderful because the judge raised the money to maintain it. And so it's a wonderful public-private government business partnership. So I'm super excited. I don't know how many acres. I ought to know.
Well, I was surprised when I read it. Does anybody remember when that was in the paper? How many years ago? No, I can't remember either.
Well, at least 4 years ago. I wish I could remember. I mean, I was there at the very first. The judge came and said, Shawn, I want to do this. And he won me over because he said, I'll be a full partner. I'll raise the maintenance money and I'll do it. I shouldn't tell stories on other cities, but on the other end, TDOT wanted to do a new interchange planning in Memphis. We were completely funding everything. I lined up local nonprofits, very established nonprofits, to provide the maintenance. The city would not have to provide any money or any maintenance. All they had to do, the mayor had to sign off and say that they would be responsible if for the area, and he wouldn't do that.
Wow.
A complete gift to the city, to an area that was developing and needed this wonderful gateway, and they were mad at TDOT and they wouldn't do it. So it was a big disappointment. So you know.
Yeah, I can say that would be very frustrating.
So you know, we just keep at it. We're still trying to help Memphis. I love Memphis. I have a daughter in Memphis, and I'm a big Memphis booster. And so I want to see Memphis, you know, have the things it needs. And so we're still working on it. But yes, that was a setback.
One question I had written down: over the 18 years that you've been doing this, have you seen interest increasing in either, you know, the government level, the legislatures, you know, private citizens?
Yes, I have. I saw a really lot of increase. And, you know, I think COVID has slightly derailed everything in a way, but up to the last couple of years, I saw a major increase in interest in government. We've had a lot of fun partnering with all the other departments, and they've been very supportive. And, you know, of course, I said we found the judge, and frankly, this TDOT project there at 4th Street would not have come off if we hadn't had such good partnership from your local TDOT people. The TDOT regional office there, Joe Deering is the director there, and Ken Flynn is head of operations. They've, Robert Rogers is on the construction side, and that's when something really goes smooth at TDOT, when the local TDOT people get behind it, and they have all really been behind this planting at TDOT. So it's been the perfect partnership. Of course, then we hit this roadblock of not being able to get a decent price on the project, but it's been pretty wonderful to work with Chattanooga.
You mentioned something about a new, excuse me, if somebody's trying to talk about a new TDOT building. Where is this going to be?
No, it's the one, I'm sorry, I'm like an old fogey. It's the one that was new like 8 years ago or something. The one, you know, up toward Volkswagen.
Okay, and that's what y'all are going to do. Have an experimental plan.
Something's new to me if it's not, you know, 20 years old.
I can understand that too. I thought maybe it was something you're building.
No, we have enough new build. That is a big new complex. So it's that new building.
Shawn, we have a couple other questions. One is, why do the engineers like turf grass so well?
Well, I think engineers like turf grass because they think it's less trouble and less maintenance. And that idea, I think it's a little bit true, but that idea you'll plant flowers and you won't have to mow, it doesn't always work that way. It's not always cheaper. Now that, but see, I think we could come to a meeting of the minds of the engineers, but the environmental people don't like the native grasses because they don't hold the slopes fast enough. So I've got two sets of people on the other side. And it's not all engineers. We've done as much as we've done because the head of TDOT maintenance, Jerry Hatcher, he's not at TDOT anymore, but he was a huge proponent for reduced mowing and reduced spraying. And it was very complicated to set all those parameters up and train all the people and all of that. And he did all of that. So there's plenty of environmental oriented or engineers, but I think engineers, I mean, and my dad was an engineer. Engineers want things planned and by the numbers, and it's very great if you can say it worked here and here, go look. So.
Well, Pam Sohn has offered to have another article on that 4th Street and MLK, so we will connect the two of you up.
Okay, as soon as we find out if it's actually somebody's gotten a bid and made a reasonable bid.
Well, the other thing is, you mentioned the anti-littering campaign. Back in the 70s or 80s, you had a remarkable ad with the convertible with people throwing things out right and left. Are you going to bring that one back?
Ain't no lower class than Tennessee trash. You have no idea. Incredibly popular. So my previous commissioner, Commissioner Schroer, John Schroer, he loved that ad and he wanted to bring it back. It's been brought back 3 times. So we had professional focus group companies. We had focus groups in 4 parts of the state, 2 different focus groups. Our litter bugs, they were all 18 to 36. We separated men and women. And our focus groups all thought it was funny. They all loved it. To a person, they said, you can't bring this back. Not politically correct. You'd have to have a child in the car. You'd have to have a woman in the car. This won't do for a modern era. So we tried to have the same sort of tone to it, in that the tone of our current campaign is has some little bit of litter karma. You know, you throw litter out, litter comes back to hurt you. Although we've kind of moved on from that. We seriously considered bringing it back. We looked at it, but we took the advice of some heavy hitting professionals in the PR and marketing business and of our fellow Tennesseans. And they thought it was cute and funny, but they did not think it spoke to millennials and Gen Z, who were the young people we're trying to speak to. We're trying to get to them with a newer, more modern message.
The ad that is at the IMAX is so great.
Yay! We have a super partnership with the aquarium. They're hosting our litter grant training for all our grantees. We give grants for litter pickup and prevention to every county in the state through a fabulous tax on the malt beverage and soft drink industries, a self-imposed tax. The malt beverage and soft drink folks fund several millions in litter prevention work every year. And we train everybody on those grants. And through our partnership with the aquarium, we're coming to Chattanooga next week. And we have over 100 attendees, and we'll be able to have it there at the aquarium. So we're super excited. We're sponsoring their big trash art effort. You know, they've had all these artists produce these sculptures using trash as a part of their how many years is it 30 years they've been, however many years they've been there, their big celebration. they've reached some big milestone, and we're participating in that celebration.
Can you see the commercial that's at the IMAX? Do you know which one it is with the girl throws the cup out and then she
Yeah, that's what, that's sort of our litter karma, she throws the cup out and then the truck comes and breaks through her bedroom wall and dumps the
It's really good.
We've now added to that with something we call talking trash. We have a red plastic cup and a grumpy food container, and red plastic cup has a pretty big ego, and he's decided he's going to stop litter. He don't want to be litter. And he basically has a talk show, Red Plastic Cup. He's interviewed Eddie George, and he's interviewed one of the scientists at the aquarium, and he's interviewed the commissioner and all kinds of Tennesseans. Red Plastic Cup interviews him in his show. You can go to nobodytrashestennessee.com and see all the videos. Modern marketing is kind of fun when you're a boomer, because we don't have to spend the money on TV ads. We're spending all our money on influencers and social media, and wait a minute, I'm trying to think of what the Twitch. We're the first office in state government to use Twitch, which is a gamer social media channel, to get permission to use Twitch. I don't think we have a big presence on Twitch yet, but we will. So we're trying to reach our audience where we find them.
I was just trying to look. Do you want me to look at these other ones, Bill, or are you looking at them?
Dennis has a question.
Yeah, hey, Shawn, I was wondering, what are the biggest costs in doing planting the roadside meadows? And are the costs one of the limiting factors that prevent these meadows from being planted?
Yes, because cost of insulation and then cost of maintenance. I wouldn't get any help within TDOT if I do something and then I just let it look bad or be crummy. So I guess our biggest costs are our expertise, our hiring of expertise help. We've been purchasing our seeds from who is it in Kentucky?
Oh, Roundstone.
Roundstone, thank you. Our
Roundstone.
seed mostly comes from Roundstone. I don't think that's our big expense, but site prep and then oversight and maintenance. And I mean, to tell you the truth, we haven't done enough to know for sure. We've done the 2 Welcome Center plantings and the 8 at state parks, but state parks has had the manpower to take up a lot of that slack. So the only big expense there has been for we've had the consultants come in a couple times a year and travel, take a couple days and go to each of the parks and advise them on what they can do better or how to help, or, oh, you can't get this growing here. It's a little more shady than we thought. Why don't we plant so-and-so? That kind of thing. So I guess those are the bigger costs.
So it's more maintenance. It's not the seed itself.
No, it's not the seed. And at least so far, site prep has been with state employees, mostly parks employees or TDOT. We can just, or even our at the state parks, we installed interpretive panels, and except for at 1 or 2 parks, we just kind of wheedled the local TDOT people to go over to parks and put the signs in. These guys are so great and so nice, and state government wants to help each other, and so we've been able to make lots of those parts happen. But yeah, I would say the subject matter expertise we've been paying for, and that kind of oversight. And so far we haven't had to spend I mean, the seed is not expensive and the site prep is not, it's been a lot of time in organizing. I have an employee who has spent a really lot of time on it.
Yeah, it seems like
But-
just the preparation is mostly killing off the existing vegetation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and in some places at exit 1 up toward Clarksville, that was a nightmare. But we finally had. I mean, it took one more year than it was supposed to, but we finally had a beautiful show of flowers.
Yeah. Okay, I don't want to hog up time here. I did have one question about the 4th Avenue, 4th Street. What was the biggest expense in that planting that was done in downtown Chattanooga?
Well, not having it in front, I can tell you the lighting we took. I don't know for sure what and some of the things that were the biggest expensive we had to have, like some of the people we were working with in downtown Chattanooga wanted to, not TDOT, wanted to take the irrigation out, and we just refused because it's just so hot, and we just didn't think it could be accomplished without irrigation. We took the lighting out. We reduced the size of some of the ground cover plants. It's not that they were way up on the top of the list of most expensive, but we thought that they were coming in unreasonably high for what they were, and that we would have just as good of success with a smaller plant. So we reduced the size of some plants. And then it had gotten bid the first time with an awful lot of surveying and record keeping, the kind of stuff that we do in a construction project, but we think doesn't need to be done in this sort of landscape planning. And so we took all of that out. There was a whole lot of, which I really think is stupid, but engineers like to do it this way, but we took it all out, of like surveying where every plant went. And I'm like, oh heck, 5 feet apart, move them over here, you know. So there is some, there was also a little bit of possibly expensive soil bringing in and making the soil what it needed to be. And that was another thing that some of the Chattanooga people really wanted to see come out. But I don't know if y'all know Gene Hyde, the retired Chattanooga urban forester. He's a dear old friend, and he had lobbied for that soil work to happen because, you know, sites like that, you can't even call it soil. It's not dirt. It's just urban junk kind of. So you need you don't want to just dig a hole and put new soil in, but you want to kind of do some augmenting to make sure. So that was kind of expensive too. We did not take that out.
Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Does anyone else have any questions? Well, I guess that's it. Shawn, we really appreciate this.
I enjoyed it. It's nice to talk to some folks with some like minds. We were out weeding my little flower garden at the back of my house this morning, so I'm in the mood.
One last question. What's your favorite native plant to use in these plantings?
Well, I mean, in those plantings, I'd say Rudbeckia. And I have this crazy Rudbeckia that's now coming up in my yard, and it's fairly invasive. It's very tall, and it is just spreading everywhere. All I'm doing is pulling it up. It came from my next door neighbor, and I like it, but and it will pull up, but I'd have to say Rudbeckia. I love coneflower, but they're not as easy, and they don't spread as well. And I want to see a mix. I don't want to see all yellow Rudbeckia. Our planting at exit 1 was Coreopsis and Rudbeckia, and we've got, I love coneflower, and I have a lot of these goofy, different colored coneflowers now and I'm in the sort of orange and sort of red, and I don't have very good luck with white ones, but I kind of like, and I have some little woodland looking super native ones that are kind of short coneflowers, and I'm excited about those too.
Well, we really appreciate your time and we're looking forward to something happening on 4th Street and MLK. And
Everybody say a little prayer.
all right, and Pam, I can reach out to you or you can reach out to me and I'll tell you how to get in touch with Shawn, or you
Yeah.
can probably look her up actually.
And email me.
All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you. I enjoyed it very much.
Bye.
Bye.